This is Johnny with Tiger Bomb MMA, and tonight I'll be going over UFC Fight Night Thompson versus Holland. I am sick as shit, so I will go through this really quickly. I mean, very, very quickly. As you can see, based off of Tapology, I was not very prepared. Kind of had a rough couple of weeks. Like, I got sick a week prior to that. I went to LA. To get to LA, I had to do a 7 hour layover in Vegas. That kicked my ass. Then the next day, after spending a single day in LA, I had to fly my ass back. So, like, and then I got sick after that to like kick my ass. Wasn't very well prepared for this card, but I'll give you my thoughts on it. First fight of the night. I like this fight. Two up and coming young ladies. We've got Yasmin Jauregui versus Istela Nunes. And for this particular fight, the odds kind of give it away. I hate the odds that it's minus 350 for Yasmin. Uh, despite the fact that I think she's going to win this one, I don't particularly hate the thought of putting a little bit of money on Estela Nunes. I think with Nunes, she's very talented. She's shown that. It's just more so the reliability and the IQ. She's 6-3 overall, right? And in her last two fights, she's shown spectacular highlights, right? Like, she's been very quick on her feet. She's very, very diverse with the kicks and the striking, but her gas tank fails her. And I don't think she can particularly get back up after, her gas tank hits a certain level. Yasmin, on the other hand, she's got the boxing, purple belt in jiu-jitsu. I think she's much smarter than Nunes. It's just she's 23, right? And at that price tag, I don't particularly like taking her or even putting her on a parlay. Uh, I do think, if I'm being perfectly honest, that I do think Nunes is going to show us a bit more in this fight, because I think the diversity in strikes and the quickness and the speed is going to give Yasmin a bit of trouble. But overall, once Yasmin starts going for takedowns, I think it's going to be a lot easier for her. It's just more so in that first, say, round and a half, is Nunes going to do something devastating? That's what I'm worried about. I will go with, God, I always have trouble with her name, Jauregui, to win this one by a decision. But again, I'm not going to be surprised if Nunes does something spectacular, because I think she's got it in her. She may be 30 years old, but I still think with a little bit more seasoning, she can be something special, because she's very fun to watch. Next bout, interesting fight. We've got Francis Marshall, the Fire Marshal, versus Marcelo Pitbull Rojo. So with this one, I've been hearing a lot of back and forth, a lot of jokes about, because Marcelo Rojo's done his camp at Glory MMA and Fitness. There's some bullshit going on there. Ugh, maybe, maybe not. When looking at this fight, like, Francis Marshall looked very impressive in the Contender Series, right? He's 23 years old, but he's 6-0. He's minus 170 compared to the plus 145 of the Argentinian. This bout is taking place at 145, which, it does concern me a bit, because if I'm looking at Rojo as a dog to beat Francis, I think he's got it in him to beat Francis in this one. Like, he's gonna have the experience, even though he's lost both of his UFC bouts. The last one against Kyler Phillips, it sucks, because like that was just too much for him. But it's bout with what's his name, that French poodle boy, Charles Jourdain. I forgot his name. Uh, he made it competitive. I think he was winning. Shit, I could be wrong, and I'm still sick. I thought he was winning the fight up until he got TKO'd. The thing is that if Francis Marshall, who, if I remember correctly, he's training out of Pellegrino's camp, Pellegrino being a black belt in jiu-jitsu, he showed a lot of promise on the ground, and on the feet he looked pretty solid. But if it stays on the feet long enough, I think Rojo has got the dog in him to make it a rough fight. Like, I mean, he's going to put it on Marshall, and I think he can really show him of that lesson in this one. The thing that I'm worried about is that it's 145. At 145, Francis Marshall's going to be significantly bigger. And if he takes down Marcelo Rojo, I think he can lay on him for a little bit and significantly, diminish the rounds for Rojo, or the minutes, I should say. That's what I'm most worried about in this particular matchup. I do like Rojo as a dog. I'm going to stick my ass out for him and take him to win by I would say, a round 3 TKO. I think he's got it in him to really put it on the youngster and really show him, like, hey, I may not be the best fighter out here, but I've learned enough throughout my losses and my wins to beat a young guy like yourself. But again, if I'm being perfectly honest, if I see Marcelo Rojo giving up takedowns easily and getting muscled down, that's when I'm going to know he's going to lose that fight. And, it just really comes down to how good is Marcelo Rojo's training camp. That's what my biggest concern is really, like, is there something fishy going on there with James Krause and whatnot? But for the time being, I'm willing to put my money on Rojo just to hopefully see that Raptor dance in the UFC for the first time. This is another interesting bout because I don't know if Valdez moved his camp out to Glory because he was also at Entrim Gym versus Natan Levy. Levy is minus 180, come back on Valdez, plus 155. I find this fight to be very similar to the one previously where we've got the more polished guy in Levy, and I mean slightly polished. And the reason he's slightly polished is because, Genaro Valdez, he's fucking grimy. There's nothing really polished about this guy. He goes out there, he gets cracked a lot, but he makes fun, entertaining fights, right? He's going to go out there and swing. The thing is that I don't know if Natan Levy's got the gumption. I don't know if that's the best way to put it, but the ability to hold down Valdez and really do anything to hurt him to keep him backed off. Natan Levy's more of a pretty fighter, right? He throws pretty kicks. He That's pretty much his game. He's a karate guy, jiu-jitsu guy, JEW jitsu. But like he should win this fight just being the more, polished guy. But I can really see Genaro Valdez going out there and making it really dirty. I mean, he could be losing the entire round and then he comes out in the last minute and just goes ballistic and even like maybe doesn't even drop Levy, but like maybe causes his nose to bleed and he wins the round. That kind of stuff. That's why I kind of hate this fight because Natan Levy, he hasn't really shown the maturity in there himself. Like neither has Valdez. He kind of is a bit wild, but from what I've seen from him, he's going to fight for your money. And at plus 155, I'll take a shot on him as well. I think he's got enough in him, and he should have learned from his last ass whooping that he took from Matt Frivola, who, if we're being honest, like, damn, Matt Frivola has been really putting in work with the striking and the striking defense. So Valdez, for me, I'll say round number, fuck it, I'll go round number 1 TKO. Valdez. This bout, see, with this fight here at flyweight, Tracy Cortez versus Amanda Ribas, I, could have been the fever talking, but when I was thinking about it, I was like, I think Cortez has a good chance to beat Ribas. Laying on her, getting on top control. And the more I thought about it, I think this is really Tracy Cortez's like biggest fight to date. Like, yes, it is, of course, against Amanda Ribas, but like it's a really solid test for her. If she can get past Ribas, that means significant things for her in the future, right? Like, what, she's number 14 in the world. How is Ribas number 22? This is a flyweight. I don't know. Did she move up? Yeah, she moved up. Oh yeah, she did move up. Duh. Um, this is going to be interesting, actually. I completely forgot that Amanda Ribas moved up in weight class because Ribas has the judo background. I thought it would be a little bit more difficult for Tracy Cortez to hold her down. Honestly, though, with that height and reach and weight advantage, I do think Tracy Cortez does have a good chance to hold her down with the jiu-jitsu. That's the biggest thing. I wasn't worried too much about the jiu-jitsu on the bottom from Ribas because obviously when you're fucking your boy Brian Ortega and he's throwing triangles, I just pictured it like naked triangles to your face, and you learn how to defend that shit pretty easily after a while. It sounds interesting for real. Like I want to see them face off because I do have a lot of faith in Ribas and her skill set, and if she can stuff the takedowns on the feet, she's going to be significantly better than Tracy Cortez. Tracy's fighting at a fight ready. I just don't know if her hands have been ever polished, right? Like she's still kind of tentative on the feet. The main thing she goes for is the takedowns. She's shown some promise with the boxing, but it's still not to the point where I would feel comfortable is if saying that if Ribas can stuff takedowns, that she's going to be comfortable enough to strike with Ribas, who's, she's got the better striking between the two. I'll go with Cortez mainly because she is the underdog, plus 110 to minus 130. Like I completely forgot that she had moved up to flyweight, and I do think Cortez is going to really show her something different. Um, Yeah. I'm intrigued by this one, and I guess when looking back, I know Ribas was able to take down Chukagian pretty easily with like the head and arm throws and shit. But even then, like Chukagian was making it kind of tough on Ribas to really hold down. I do think with Tracy's pedigree with the wrestling, it's going to be a little bit easier for her to get the takedowns. But when it comes to the grappling and getting back up, that's what I worry about Ribas, like being at a higher weight class with a girl with the ass thickness of Tracy Cortez. Is she really going to be able to mount anything off of there? So I'll go with Cortez. This is kind of like a spur in the moment. I was going to go with Ribas, but I completely forgot that she moved up in weight. Damn, I got to stay hydrated. But yeah, I'll go with Cortez on this one. This one's pretty simple. I've got Jonathan Pearce, round number 2 TKO. Um, it's really, I can't really go with anything other than that, right? Like he's a minus 420, and he's kind of proven to be that minus 420 price tag, like the way he's been kind of handling business as of late, TKOing people. Who was this? Omar Morales? Oh, yeah, he fucking submitted him. What a piece of shit. Tristan Connolly. He beat Tristan Connolly? That's funny. Cub Swanson, Derek Minner. It's just crazy. Like Darren Elkins, he's a tough guy. The height reach advantage of Jonathan Pearce, who's kind of been a ever evolving, relentless wrestler. I think when he first came into the UFC, I saw him just as a really dumb brawler, not really knowing that he had that wrestling background, but now he's really honing it in. And I think if he gets on top, takes the back of Darren Elkins, it's going to be an easy night for Jonathan Pearce. It's just more so how much resistance is Darren Elkins going to provide. And I think the first round might be a bit tough. Elkins is a crafty dude with 27-10 is his record. Like that's 37 fights overall against still a relatively young Jonathan Pearce, 30 years old, but that size advantage, like he's 6 foot tall compared to the 5'10 of Darren Elkins. I'll go around number 2 TKO. If anything, the under 2.5 for sure. Jonathan Pearce gets it done. Oh, this fight, Michael Johnson versus Mark Diakiese. I don't know why they paired these two guys up together. Mark Diakiese minus 230, come back on Michael Johnson plus 190. Michael Johnson, he's had issues with the wrestling in the past. He's got the super fast hands, and as of late, he's kind of had that resurgence, right? Like he arguably won against Jamie Malarkey. I had money on Malarkey, so I'm not going to say that he won, but you can kind of tell. And Alan Patrick, if it wasn't Mason Jones that got him out of the UFC, it was another cool dude, and Michael Johnson that got him out of the UFC. And he still got the fast hands. Mark Diakiese, on the other hand, he's not interested in fighting anymore. He's just interested in winning fights, and that's what pisses me off about Diakiese. Like he's got the power in his hands, the power in his kicks, but again, he's just I don't know what am I trying to say here? He's been reborn as a wrestler, and he's pretty damn good at it. And it's not fun to watch. I took him to beat Damir Hadzovic by submission. He didn't care. He just wanted to win. This one, if Michael Johnson poses any sort of threat on the feet, Mark Diakiese is going to actually go for a takedown. I do think, though, that in this particular case, Mark Diakiese has a better shot at getting the submission. I'd like to see what the line is because, Michael Johnson's been submitted multiple times, and the way he gets on top of these guys with his, physicality, Mark Diakiese, if he rides him for long enough, I think the neck is going to present itself. So I'll go with round number 2 submission for Diakiese. Uh, I might possibly take that line, depending on like what the plus money is, if it even is plus money. But the decision prop is always there. I don't think Mark Diakiese is going to do anything different as the last few fights. He's just going to keep going for takedowns and get 3 in a row. He's not going to want to risk it. This one's interesting. We've got Clay Guida versus Scotty Holtzman. Holtzman hasn't fought in about 2 years, got knocked out by Mateus Gamrot. Clay Guida last lost to that pussyfoot Claudio Puyas. Claudio Puto, if you call him. If where I come from, that's what we call him. What a horrible performance by that cunt. But this one's tough for real because neither guy has like the youth advantage. If anything, I would give it to Clay Guida. He's plus 160. Scott Holtzman is minus 190. I think that if Guida can push that wrestling, right? He's got the oh man, like it's a tough one. The reason I'm gonna go with Clay Guida on this one is because he's been more active than Scotty Holtzman. And yeah, if Scotty catches him, it could be an easy night for Clay Guida. But Guida's always been tough. He's a relentless guy. I'll go with Guida just mainly based off of the strength of schedule. Like he's been fighting more often. He's even been doing like the jiu-jitsu tournaments. And he's still got the wrestling right. He's got that down. And if he uses that heavy wrestling game plan against Scotty Holtzman, I think he's going to have a lot of success. I know Holtzman himself, his takedown defense isn't terrible, and if he starts like landing, he's had a lot of time to really work on himself. So we might see a better version of Scotty Holtzman, but at nearly 40 years old, I just don't see that really being anything that Clay Guida can't handle. So I'll go with Guida by a decision on this one. Horrible fight here. We've got Angela Hill versus Emily Ducote. Not because of my hatred of Emily Ducote or anything. It's mostly because of my hatred for Angela Hill. I bought a T-shirt of hers and it fucking sucked. But anyways, minus 125 for Ducote. Come back on Angela Hill plus 105. So I think the odds on this one are a little closer just because of Angela Hill's win over, oh my God, Lupita Godinez. I fully see Ducote winning this one by a decision, mainly because that fight with her and Godinez, she had the height advantage. And I have to say, Angela Hill did a pretty good job with the game plan against Godinez, like attacking the knees. Godinez really couldn't react well after taking a couple knees from Angela Hill. But Angela Hill is 37 years old. She's lost multiple fights. Emily Ducote, she's shown in her her debut against Jessica Penne, she showed me something that like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have faded her. I took Penne to win that one because I thought, hey, Penne still got it. I think she's got a way to win this fight. She showed a level of maturity that was beyond her years. I'm like, damn, this girl made it to the UFC, and I remember seeing her at the LFA and whatnot, but not LFA, Invicta. Why did I get those mixed up? Whatever. But I've watched her in Invicta, and she looked okay, but her debut in the UFC, I was like, damn, she's got that maturity, like that type of shit I like to see, like that calmness that like I'm not phased by the moment. And I think she's gonna perform here. I think she's gonna come in here with a good game plan, low, beautiful low kicks on Angela Hill. She's got the jujitsu to really defend anything from Angela Hill. Like the takedown defense is going to be there for Emily Ducote. The only concern I have here is that Angela Hill, once in a blue moon, does tend to overperform. I don't think this is going to be the case. There's been cases in the past where I'm like, yeah, she's going to overperform here like she did against Godinez. But being that these two ladies are roughly similar in height, Godinez was significantly shorter than Angela Hill. I don't see there being much of an issue for Ducote to win this one by decision. Next bout. I'm surprised this isn't on the main card, but we've got Nico Price versus Phil Rowe. Phil Rowe minus 120. Come back on Nico Price plus 100. I like Phil Rowe on this one. I think there's going to be an eventual finish by Phil Rowe, whether it be with the hands or with the submission. Phil Rowe, I think he hasn't really shown us what he is fully capable of. Yes, he's gotten finishes in his last few fights against, guys he should have finished. Orion Kosei, no fucking problem. Jason Witt, no problem. Even that Jason Witt fight, I get such a fucking raging hard on when what I say ends up happening exactly like I say it. It just makes me so fucking happy. I'm eating goddamn tomahawk ribs as I'm watching that fight, and I see Jason Witt take down Phil Rowe, and I'm thinking to myself, don't panic. I literally said it in the last. Got some shit on my computer in the video. Like he's gonna get taken down. Don't panic. Round number 2, he's gonna fucking finish him. And yeah, took care of business. Like he got taken down, got back up, took care of business, no fucking problem. That's the thing about Phil Rowe, right? He still hasn't shown that flawless performance, and I think he's due for that performance here against Nico Price. I think against Price, he's going to have the height advantage, the reach advantage. If Price takes him down, I think on the ground he's not gonna like what's gonna come down to him. Phil Rowe's one of these guys that like he's been furiously training his jiu-jitsu at Fusion XL. And I just think that I'm worried about this fight really because I think that if Nico Price shoots for a takedown with the length of his arms, of Phil Rowe's arms, he can snatch up a Darce or a guillotine, more than likely a Darce choke. And it's going to be an easy night for Phil Rowe. And I'm fully predicting Phil Rowe to get a finish here, whether it be immediately or in, say, round number 3. Biggest thing is Nico Price has that awkward, funky type of power, right? Like he's a dog, right? Like he can literally be losing the entire fight, and then he just bum rushes you with a flying knee, and not lights out. But I do really believe that Phil Rowe is due for a spectacular performance. I think it's going to be against Nico Price, unfortunately, because I like Nico Price. He's a fun guy to watch, but I do think Phil Rowe finishes him. To be safe, I'm going to say round number 2. I do think that whether it be with the hands, man, I think he catches him. Why I'm not fully confident on the submission opposed to the knockout is that if Phil Rowe hurts him and he stumbles him, I can see him just snatching up a neck and finishing it there because I know he trains his jiu-jitsu very, very furiously, as I mentioned. So I'll go with Phil Rowe inside the distance overall. Oh, man, I hate this fight. Eric Anders versus Kyle Daukaus. And the odds have it in favor of the Darce Knight. I forgot that he changed his name to that. Minus 200 for Daukaus. Come back on your boy. Plus 160. I hate this fight because Daukaus should win this one. He should win this one by a decision, or it's not a decision, a submission, whether it be a Darce or whatnot. He should win this one pretty easily. My biggest worry is that his face got broken in 3 places by the guy who's fighting above him. And I'm so fucking terrified that if Eric Anders lands a stiff jab, his fucking face is gonna swell, right? Like, how well has he been training? Right? Has he been training with headgear on? Like, has he been doing live sparring? I'm worried about Daukaus for real. Like, I I remember listening to an interview with him, and it basically said that like that knee ruined his life, and I'm like, damn, like, and it really makes you wonder, like this sport is fucking dangerous to get your face broken like that. I thought he was going to be away longer than what he was. What was that, 5 months ago? I personally do think he is coming back a little too soon. But how confident is he in this fight? Like, hey, we got to fight for you. Oh, I need more time. I'm like, it's Eric Anders. I'm like, yeah, I can take it. Like, how confident is he in fighting Eric Anders? Eric Anders, as of late, he hasn't really been performing. Like, I've taken him to beat like Jin Young Park, and I thought he did beat him. But when you're fighting that kind of style, he was just kind of holding him against the cage. And based off of the point system, technically I would give him the fight, but whatever, like you can't necessarily expect to be given a win when you're doing that kind of shit. You know, I'll go with Daukaus still to win. I think if he goes out there, takes him down, takes his back, he is going to have the height advantage. Dude is super lanky. He takes his back once. I think he chokes him out. I think that's going to have to be the game plan. Like, take no damage, and then after that, you collect your money. Uh, put more time into recovery, and then just heal the fuck up. But I would not advise touching this fight. This next bout, though, is highly intriguing. Roman Dolidze versus Jack Hermansson. Dolidze is taking this fight on short notice. Jack Hermansson, he is minus 170 comeback on Dolidze, plus 145. Dolidze, as of late, he took those words from Bisping to heart. Like, he's been finishing everybody. He finished he finished that guy Phil Haas twice. Popped his knee, and then he finished him with strikes. Like, this guy, he's uber confident in himself, and I think he can get the finish here against Jack Hermansson. It's just that Hermansson, he's a very crafty, wily guy. He's going to have the cardio advantage. I don't think Roman's going to come in here in the best shape. So if I were Hermansson, I try to push the wrestling. I mean, Roman's shown, decent takedown defense. And on the ground, I think he's going to pose some threats with the leg locks. But a guy like Hermansson, I think he's crafty enough to avoid any sort of attacks on the ground from Dolidze. Um, I have to go with Hermansson on this one by potentially, I'll say a third round finish. I don't know if it's going to be a ground and pound. See, I might be a little too hopeful, right? That I want to see Dolidze get his ass beat because he has it coming to him. But I do actually, fuck it. I do think this might go to a decision. I am hopeful though for a Jack Hermansson finish in the third. It's more so I'm second guessing Dolidze's cardio. I don't know. I don't know if he's going to be fully ready to go the pace of Jack Hermansson. Like if Jack Hermansson just spams takedowns and pushes him against the cage, attacks, guillotines, the Joker team, if you will. Like I do think eventually he's going to wear on Roman Dolidze. And he hasn't necessarily shown horrible gas in the past, but I always go back and think about his only loss in the UFC to Trevin fucking Giles, where all he did was just avoid the leg locks and just pound him on the ground. So I think that's going to be the similar thing here. Although I did think that when it came to the Phil Haas fight, and it didn't go that way. I think Hermansson being a much bigger guy, 6'1", I think he's going to have more success against Dolidze than most people have had. So I'll go with Hermansson by decision, but hopefully seeing a TKO in his future. Next bout, we've got Tai Tuivasa versus Sergey Pavlovich. These are the two guys that most recently finished Black Beast. Biggest concern with this one is that Tuivasa just got knocked out like 4 months ago to Cyril Gane. And Pavlovich, he's a genetic freak, right? A genetic Russian. Minus 165 for Pavlovich. Come back on Tuivasa. Plus 135. I'm going to go with Tuivasa by first round knockout. I don't think this one goes over at all. I think it's under 1.5 for sure. Both these guys go out there, try to finish. Pavlovich, his style is only one way. He's like a tank. He goes forward, tries to knock you out. And I don't think he's going to like what Tuivasa has in store for him. Like, it took a lot to knock out Tai Tuivasa. And I don't know if Pavlovich's going to have that type of arsenal to finish Tuivasa, right? Like, yeah, he can hit him once and wobble him. But if Tuivasa, here's the shit, Pavlovich isn't going to be throwing high kicks. If Tuivasa can counter Pavlovich, I think he can put him out. I think Tuivasa, his chin is still impeccable despite, being cracked recently. And Pavlovich, he's been finished once by Overeem. Now it was by TKO. I really do think that Tuivasa is, I guess, a much better fighter right now than Pavlovich. So I'll go with Tuivasa round number 1. Yes, Matheus Nicolau versus Matt Schnell. This particular fight is going to be a hell of a fight. So I've tried to justify betting Matt Schnell. He's nearly plus 200, plus 190. Come back on Nicolau is a minus 225. And get it out of the way, both these guys are pretty chinny. Matt Schnell for sure, but he's got this unrelenting fire in him to try to win fights. Nicolau himself, I've never really been a fan of his chin, but he has shown a lot of, polish overall in his last few fights. He hasn't really been touched cleanly, and that's what I like about him in this fight. And the more I thought about it, I'm like, can Matt Schnell win this fight? Yes. Primarily doing exactly what he did against Sumadarji, making it a dogfight. Like, he has to go forward. He has to go through the fire of Nicolau, who, as of late, surprisingly, he's shown some power where he was just rocking the shit out of David Dvorak, which surprised the hell out of me. I'm like, damn, he is really hurting Dvorak. And if he lands cleanly on Schnell, the biggest difference between Sumadarji and Nicolau in this one is that he's not going to have any fear going to the ground with Schnell. He's going to get on top of him, either finish him with submission or pound him out. So if Schnell does win this fight, he has to take the fight to Nicolau. Honestly, at this point, I don't think betting Nicolau is for me. I think maybe even betting like it doesn't go the distance is probably the best option, because I do believe either guy can finish the other. I am rooting for Matt Schnell because, dear God, this guy got his ass beat. He got TKO'd like 14 times his last fight, and he came back and completely finished the shit out of Sumadarji. And yeah, Nicolau, like to be honest, like part of me kind of sees him as a bit of a fraud. I don't know why. Like it is about him. I think he's highly skilled. It's just more so that like he's number 6 in the world currently. I don't know. I think he's just too highly ranked. I think once he hits a certain level of competition, like he's fighting number 12 right now, and I'm making an argument that number 12 could potentially knock out number 6. We'll see though. I still have that gut feeling that Nicolau is a bit of a fraud. Like I know he came into the UFC, he got knocked out by Dustin. What the hell was his name? Is that keep chopping boy? Dustin, whatever. It was like a head kick that knocked him out when he blocked it with his glove. He went away, came back, and he's been getting decisions. And then he's been looking better, right? He's been looking more intelligent. It's just something about him tells me that it's a fraud. Like I think if Manel Cop were to fight him again, I think Cop finishes him. Fuck. I'm gonna go with Nicolau to win this one, just because, like, the level of danger I see in Matt Schnell's chin, pun intended, is too high, and I think that Nicolau has a very very good chance of knocking him out, getting his like I think his first UFC knockout. But Schnell, though, I'm rooting for him. I think he can win this fight by knockout. I think he can definitely knock him out. Whether he can submit, hurt him on the feet and then submit Nicolau, I'm not certain about that. Nicolau's got the jiu-jitsu himself, the black belt. Schnell himself has been submitted multiple times. But yeah, if he goes out there and performs and lets his hands go and just fucking goes ballistic, I'd love to see Schnell get that knockout. But I do think Nicolau finishes him in like 2 rounds. Oh boy, Rafael dos Anjos versus Brian Barberena, the co-main event. Minus 340 for Dos Anjos comeback on Barberena is plus 270. This is the fight that I knew when it was announced. I knew exactly how it was going to finish. Dos Anjos is going to finish Barberena round number 2 with a body kick. I am pretty fucking confident in it. Like Barberena's tough. I love Barb. Like I really do. I've picked against him a few times. I picked against him against what's his name? Robbie Lawler. I thought Robbie Lawler was going to show me something. Robbie Lawler's done now. Like he's completely done. Like I should have seen it earlier. Dos Anjos, he's not done. Like he still can compete with the best of them. And in this particular fight, yeah, he's going to be giving up a bit of height, a bit of reach. And I just think he's a much more skilled fighter. I think if he wants to take it to the ground, he can submit Barberena. If he wants to keep it on the feet, he's got the firepower to hurt Barberena. I think he's just more diverse. He's more explosive. Barb, he's got the overwhelming like cardio and the pace, but with a guy with the skill set, the championship mentality like Dos Anjos, I don't think it's gonna work. Like, yeah, Dos Anjos is 38, and the best days are behind him, but I still think he's got enough here to put it on Barberena. And the reason I say body kick is that Barb's been hurt to the body a couple times since he's had his emergency surgery that nearly killed him. I'm not fully positive what exactly it was. I tried to look it up and it had a word that I didn't recognize. I'm like, fuck that. I'm not going to do any more research on it. But he's got that giant scar on his belly. And I just think that if Dos Anjos just puts a perfectly placed left kick to the body, it's going to really hurt Barb and it's going to just put him out. Like that's the one thing about Barberena. You can probably hurt him on the feet by attacking the head, but if you really want an easy night, you have to attack the body. And I think Dos Anjos will know that, and I think he's going to find that liver in the second round. So I'll go round number 2, Dos Anjos TKO. Now we've got the main event, Stephen Thompson versus Kevin Holland, and this is a dead pick'em. I got Kevin Holland to win this one, mainly because the youth, the speed, the awkwardness, you know, the did I say reach already? He's just gonna have too much on Stephen Thompson. But I don't know how this fight's gonna go because they've both been kind of buddy buddy. You can't always trust Kevin Holland, especially if he's like buddy buddy with somebody. And I'll still give it to Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Like he's still got some pep in his step, and I think he can make it a slight bit competitive. My biggest worry with this one is that they're gonna kind of like play patty cake or a sparring session for 4.5 rounds. And then at the end, Kevin Holland's corner is going to be like, you got to go out there and finish him because we have no idea who's winning this fight. And then he might go for a takedown and get a triangle choke. So, yeah, I don't know with this one. I'm really, really not positive how this one's going to go. Like, I used to think I knew with certain fighters, like, because Kevin Holland has been fighting like guys who've been like, you know, what's the word? Aggressive fighters. Like, we've got Alex Oliveira, very aggressive. We've got Timeen's also pretty aggressive on the feet. With those types of fighters, I think it plays into the hands of Kevin Holland. Like he's able to react to what they're doing to him. Stephen Thompson's more of a counter guy, and I think Kevin Holland himself is also a counter fighter, so it might be a very boring fight. And Kevin Holland as well, he fucking retired after getting submitted by Hamzat Chimaev, which I have to say, like I understand why he said all that shit, but he looked pretty damn impressive in that fight. Like, yeah, he got submitted, but damn, like his takedown defense, his scrambling ability, I'm like, dear God, like the balls on this guy, and he still looked impressive despite him losing. And it just showed that he was in the right path. It's just, again, he's back at our welterweight weight class that I think suits him better. He's going to have all the attributes to really push him forward into like the top, potentially the top 10 one day. It's just more so his mentality to fighting, like especially like Stephen Thompson. Uh, he should absolutely finish Stephen Thompson. He's got the submission ability to do so, but I think it's going to be a decision. And part of me thinks it's going to be a boring decision. I think it's going to be very like pitter patter, touch and go type of stuff. And honestly, that's why I'm not really looking forward to the main event. Like I'm going to watch it, of course, but something tells me it's not going to be very fun. So I'm going to go with Kevin Holland by decision. I think the over 3.5 is where I'm at with this one if I had to bet it. And I could be wrong. Kevin can go out there and just completely steamroll Steven, or vice versa. Steven could just spinning hook kick Kevin Holland, and it is what it is. But something does tell me that it's going to be a pretty boring and eventful fight. But yeah, that's been my predictions for this particular fight card. Johnny from Tiger Bomb MMA. Sick as shit. Like, share, whatever. Good night.